Welcome to my State of the Union address. I will give my thoughts on what's currently going on in the world. Mainly because in Toronto, Canada, we elected a new Prime Minister today, and he was a Liberal. And they think that the only reason a Liberal was elected Prime Minister was in reaction to the United States President and his war on the whole world. Before I do so, I should probably inform you as to who are these thoughts coming from? What is my perspective? Well, I am 47 years old. I live in Toronto. I only date blonde supermodels, and I don't really get a lot of them. I get sometimes, sometimes get them. I've been to Disney World almost every year of my life growing up. I dropped out of high school, so I'm not university educated. I'm straight. I'm a white man. I'm 6 feet tall. 4th generation Torontonian. Now, my channel is not political. However, I do think at times you should speak up for yourself on your views when it's important. I worked as a caterer for 10 years, and I worked in almost every big building in Toronto. I worked, at the Air Canada Centre. I worked at the museum, the Art Gallery of Toronto, everywhere. And, you can't speak, you can't talk about things like politics, especially if you're at a political event or something. In the same way that you can't badmouth the company you work for. You get fired for doing something like that. Like, let's say I'm doing an event and some rich guy is talking about something that I don't agree with politically. I can't say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to pour your glass of wine, I disagree with you. However, there does come a point where I would say I'd rather quit my job than pour this asshole a glass of wine. If it was Charles Manson, I probably would say, no, I'm not going to pour him a glass of wine. Recently, this actress named Rachel Ziegler played Snow White. She's not white. And she spoke her political mind. And a lot of people were saying, shut up. Just do your job. Nobody's interested in your opinions. However, I hate her for other reasons than that, speaking her mind politically. That's the least of my complaints about her. But, you know what? Good for her if she feels like speaking up for her cause is more important than her career. But when you do that, you are risking your career. But maybe it's worth risking your career when it comes to certain things. So where do I stand on the political spectrum? Well, I stand in an area where nobody agrees with me. I piss off both sides. I believe that the money system needs to go. It's an old caveman system that is no longer necessary. There's plenty of food and resources for everybody. I believe the money system breeds psychopaths because it's a system of greed. I don't believe anybody needs more than one super yacht. I think the money system discourages kindness and creativity. So my thoughts on Trump have not really changed since 2016. When he was elected in 2016, I got into a depression for about 2 days. I turned off my phone and I just slept. And I basically said, okay, America's dead. Or the States, because it's the United States of America. We're in North America, so I don't think it's right to call them American, call you guys Americans, because you're the United States of America. We're Canada of America. So I got depressed for 24 hours, and my main issue with him, I agreed with many of his ideas, but my main issue with him was that he's an idiot. He's just a complete idiot. I mean, I later found out he also was a psychopath, and he had dementia. But still, my main issue with him is that he's an idiot. But back to the psychopath thing, I think that Donald Trump represents a symbol and a symptom of the money system of United States. And the United States, like it or not, they are a representation of the world. The world looks to them, the world emulates them, and it's not just a United States problem, this whole money problem, this greed problem, this encouraging of psychopaths problem. Whether, even if he had not been elected, this problem was inevitable. Dumping oil into the ocean and then thinking you can go for sushi. This disassociation with the world, the climate, nature, science, was still very dangerously strong. I heard an American politician one time say that climate change is an artificial construct. And I was thinking, okay, so you're basically saying that nature is artificial. And that's the most upside down thing you could ever say, because nothing is more real than nature. And on the opposite end, nothing is more fake than money, right? Money is the most abstract thing possible because it only exists in our collective minds. I mean, nature is the most natural construct there is. Now, I want to touch on a couple things in terms of, two questions that people can't seem to answer. Number one, does Trump know he's lying? Number two, why do all these people follow him? So the first question, does he know he's lying? Okay, the answer is, in order to tell a lie, you have to believe in truth in the first place. He does not believe in truth, therefore he's not lying. I'm sure he would pass a lie detector test. Why do so many people follow him? Well, first, he's like a 70-year-old symbol of America, right? The rich American businessman. Even before The Apprentice, he was in Home Alone 2. So even as a kid, I knew of him in Toronto. I'm sure my parents, I think they probably had a copy of The Art of the Deal on our bookshelf. So unlike every other politician, Donald already had a reputation and an image. Another important thing is that he projects certainty. I learned this lesson when I was 16. It doesn't matter. People hate making choices. So, I would hang out with my friends and they'd be like, what do you want to do today? What are we doing today? And I'd go, we're going to go see this movie. And they go, okay. People don't like making decisions, and they love it when somebody is certain, as well as decisive. And on that note, on certainty, I believe there were three major points where they could have gotten rid of Trump. The first was when they impeached him after the insurrection, but then they backed down. Right? They didn't vote to get rid of him. In other words, they showed uncertainty. The second was Merrick Garland showing uncertainty the whole time that he was hired. And I find it very pathetic that Merrick Garland fled Germany during World War II only to be a coward to a new dictator later in his life. The third opportunity was when the Supreme Court said that a president has absolute immunity. Because what Biden should have done is he should have thrown the Supreme Court in jail and said, are you still sure I should have absolute immunity? I'll check on you in a week. And then, okay, I'll check on you in a month. Are you still sure that I should have absolute immunity? That's what he should have done. And you know what? A lot of people would say, oh my God, that's terrible. How he can't do that? Well, yeah, he can do that because they said he can do that. And secondly, it would show certainty. It would show action, decisiveness. It would show balls. Even the far right that disagreed with him would respect the balls that it takes to do something like that. Yeah, I'm sorry if you disagree with me, but I don't think Trump is just a disgrace to the United States. I think he's a disgrace to all humanity. If America is in a state of disgrace, that just says that humanity is in a state of disgrace. Now, another elephant in the room that nobody ever talks about is xenophobia and multiculturalism. Right? I live in Toronto, which is widely considered to be the most multicultural city in the world. I'm fourth generation Torontonian. My great-grandparents all came here from Italy. So my parents were born in Toronto and my grandparents were born in Toronto. So I don't really feel like I have a culture here, and I don't feel like it means much to be a Torontonian if somebody can get here and have all the same rights as me right away. That's not how you build a sense of culture. Switzerland, apparently it's really hard to be a citizen of Switzerland. You have to, I think you have to have parents that were born there, blah, blah, blah. It's really hard. So it actually means something. Germany, you can't have dual citizenship. So, a friend of mine has lived in Canada his whole life, but he's never become a Canadian citizen because he didn't want to give up his German citizenship. Now, the United States has a similar problem as I do, because it's just well, what culture do we have? We don't have a culture. Our culture is every culture. And also America and Canada, the United States and Canada, are very young countries, right? So what does it even mean to be an American? What's their history? What's their culture? The Old West, I guess, right? Guns. That's about all I can think of. Now, xenophobia, meaning fear of foreigners. The old Greek god Zeus, his full name was Zeus Xenios. That's where xenophobia comes from. He was the god of hospitality, because that's what xenia means, hospitality. So, fear of foreigners. It's a real thing, and it needs to be treated like a real thing. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a healthy thing, but it's a real thing. You get a new neighbor that moves in, you're going to be a little mistrustful of him at first. It's just how people are. But think of it. Think of that. The fact that Zeus was the god of hospitality. Xenios. That, the king of all the gods, right? He was the head god, and he was the god of hospitality. That just tells you how important this is. And nobody ever talks about it on the news, on the left or the right. People fear other cultures. Now, if my daughter, I always go to this extreme example. If my daughter were to say, I'm dating this guy, he comes from a culture of cannibals, I'd be I'd be very worried. Okay? I'm not saying that culture's wrong for being cannibals. I'm just saying I'm worried that he's going to eat my daughter. Now, as I said earlier, I'm only attracted to hot blonde supermodels. And call that what you want. It's a lot of bad things, right? But if I had my way, the only people allowed in Toronto would be hot, young, blonde, female supermodels. Right? But I have to accept the fact that not everybody's going to be a hot, blonde supermodel. So, I'm saying I have to be accepting, but at the same time, I have every right to be a little bit annoyed that I'm not surrounded by hot, blonde supermodels. So I can sympathize with people from the States who have lived there for generations, and all of a sudden they're surrounded by other cultures, and they're like, what the hell? Where's my culture? What I don't have a culture anymore. And that needs to be given some respect. Not maybe respect, but acknowledgement, especially by the left. I also think it's highly likely that the United States and the world, for the last 50 years, this peace and prosperity, last 75 years, was just a hiccup in the history of the human race. In terms of first world countries, we've grown lazy, we've grown way too used to, comfortable, we've taken for granted how easy we've had it. This Make America Great Again. What great, you mean when the average lifespan was 40 years old and you had to use a horse and buggy and you couldn't communicate without, it took a day to send a telegram to to the next town. Was that when it was great? And there was no cure for anything. And if you broke your arm, you just had a feeble arm for the rest of your life. There was no anesthetic, so if you had to get, like, I don't know, like your tooth pulled out, you needed to have surgery, you just had to bite on a piece of wood and just deal with the pain. When infant death was like, 1 out of 3 kids you had, they would die at birth. And if you think that was bad, and if this has been just a hiccup in the last 75 years, then it's about to get that bad and worse pretty soon. Finally, I'd like to have a word about the anti-science people. They choose to not believe in science when it isn't convenient for them, right? So the fact that cell phones work, and that's all based on science, they don't question that. They don't question their cell phones. They don't question using fossil fuels, right, to power their cars, even though the science behind fossil fuels explains that fossil fuels did exist for 3 billion years or whatever, right? Like, the Earth isn't 2,000 years old, or however old the Christians think it is. So if you don't believe in science, then you can just throw out your cell phone, because why should you believe in that? And don't drive a car, because you shouldn't believe in that. And you shouldn't even fire machine guns, because you don't understand the science behind it. Like, it shouldn't work. Why do you believe in machine guns? Regarding the virus deniers, the vaccine deniers, I joke about how they're like, I should buy them a Fisher Price Junior Detective kit, because they think they can figure things out in one day. What a virologist spent his whole life on that specific strain of virus. It took him that long to learn. You can learn it in one day. I call them overnight virologists. So I think an important thing going forward is to stop sharing science with people who don't respect science. They don't believe in climate change. Don't tell them when there's a hurricane. Don't share the weather report with them. You just get out of town and let the hurricane have its way with them, because they don't believe in the hurricane anyways. Nobel Prize, he's credited for inventing TNT, or discovering it. Dynamite. Don't share dynamite with the people that don't believe in science. They won't know how to use it. Don't share the technology to using machine guns with them. They wouldn't be able to make a machine gun on their own. And don't share oil with them, because they don't believe in fossils. And finally, don't share the atom bomb with them, because they're not going to know how to use it properly. People who don't believe in science shouldn't be allowed to use computers. Because what are they going to do on the computers? They're going to go on the computer and say that science isn't real. Computers aren't real. Or even worse, they'll take credit for inventing it. Or they'll say God invented it. No, at the end of the day, nobody is taking pleasure in the death of the United States except for maybe Russia and China. But, I'll give you a little anecdote. I went to Germany when I was like 20, and I was hanging out with a bunch of 20-year-old Germans, and they're telling me how much they were bashing the United States and how they don't like the United States. And then meanwhile, I look over at their bookshelf, and it's filled with South Park and The Simpsons and all these American movies. So, we all love the United States. We're all very disappointed. And it's really just the death of all of us. We're all together in this. It's a global culture now. But I'll say that if it wasn't for Trump and his tariffs, we wouldn't have a liberal prime minister today. Like, the conservatives are having a lot of difficulty getting elected in every other country now. So this is gonna, this is gonna turn out to be a good thing one way or another. And you know what? If this has been just a hiccup, it's been an awesome hiccup. I've got a 60-inch TV screen. I've got the easiest life imaginable. It's just a wonderful time. It's a great time to get ill, because we got the best surgery. It's always the best time to get sick because technology keeps getting better. So there's a lot of great things going on, even if they're about to end. So what do I care, right? I'm 47. I don't have kids to worry about. I've got no dogs in this fight. Anyways, hope I didn't bring you down too bad. Try to have a good day. So back to our regular scheduled program. I will be doing movie reviews. I'll be doing, I guess, reviews of the critics' choice for top 10 movies of the 80s, and then a video about the 90s and blah blah blah. So I'm gonna have some fun, I think. Does it sound like it? Yeah, I'm gonna have so much fun.